Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today for the new episode of the podcast A Journey into Fraud Prevention. I'm your host Ivan Prokofiev. Here's the deal, I have a favor to ask you. If you ever enjoying the context of this podcast or you're enjoying this episode right now, please hit the subscribe button. It helps the podcast a lot. Additionally, it allows me to invite more and more new guests. I will do everything to improve the podcast and increase the quality of the podcast as well. Thank you. And поехали. Hi Hilton, how are you today?
I'm really good, Ivan. Thank you very much for having me. And can't complain. It is a sunny day. It's Friday. What more can you ask for?
It's amazing. It's a pleasure to invite you today. Can you introduce yourself for people who don't know you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Hilton. I currently work at a company called Shield as the US Director of Accounts. We're a device-first risk intelligence company. So we help online platforms eliminate fraud and all malicious activity, essentially. But me personally, I'm a lifelong storyteller. I'm a sales guy through and through. It's what I've always done. I'm a very proud South African. I'm a technology nerd, an avid learner. I really love learning and diving deep into subjects and going down rabbit holes. That's me.
Such an amazing introduction, and I believe you're going to like my first questions. Fraud prevention. What is fraud prevention for you?
You know, it's a really broad topic, and I think subjectively people can answer it in different ways. But it's really about the detection initially of kind of malicious behavior or intent even. Then how do you deal with that? Do you stop it? How do you stop it? And if it gets through your kind of check, how do you deal with it post actual fraud getting through or whatever it may be? So in those kind of three broad categories. But for me, really, it boils down to trust. It's all about trust. So when you're preventing fraud, you're creating a ecosystem that is trustworthy for the user and for yourself as the provider of that service to the market.
You as a user of multiple, I believe, platforms and services that exist in nowadays.
Yeah.
Do you have any products that you used to use before and you can't use them anymore because you lose the trust?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to kind of name and shame some of them.
Yeah,
but, I mean,
sure.
like there are platforms on which there's just kind of abusive comments as an example. So like you'd get kind of, if you post something, you get kind of abused in the comment section. I mean, that's kind of social media as a whole. But if it's not controlled and it's not dealt with in an efficient manner by the platform itself, you kind of lose your trust as a participant in that community or whatever that social channel is. But it can also be marketplaces where you get products that are kind of dodgy because they're not controlling the seller accounts, and there's loads of fake sellers selling fake products or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Marketplaces specifically, because you get people pumping up reviews and saying, hey, this is the best product ever, but it's like auto clickers and bots busy creating these positive reviews. And at the end of the day, you buy a product based on that review, you get it, it's poor, and you have a bad experience, so you don't use that platform again. So a couple of different marketplaces. There's some big names in there and some smaller ones, local ones too. And then social platforms, absolutely.
Yeah, I ask you this question because I mostly agree with you from the trust perspective that when we are looking from the fraud, some people realize we need to decline as much as possible, even if we are getting real customers, but they never put themselves in the shoes of the customer, because I have plenty of stories like that. When I order something, I just check it, I provide tons of documents, I provided all information. At the end, I got the shitty service.
Yeah.
And what's the point of this integration and all questions they ask me? Because at the end, I'm not going to buy anything because my experience's journey and registration is going to be ruined.
Yeah, and then you're going to go and tell everybody you know about that experience because it struck a chord with you. You didn't get your product that you wanted. You feel like you were kind of abused by the process of it. Then when you're with your friends on the weekend or whatever, and someone's about to buy, you literally become a negative advocate for that business and say, hey, whoa, don't do that because of X, Y, Z that I experienced. So I think it's crazy that trust isn't the primary driver for a lot of these platforms.
Yeah, and everyone customer focus.
Exactly.
I like it when they say it's customer focus,
Yeah.
and at the end, it's not.
And like you say, putting yourself in the customer's shoes, because I mean, my assumption is every platform is doing that. Like that's key to designing your user experience and onboarding your customers and talking to the market in an effective way to get product market fit. And I don't know, it should be a core component of decision making.
Can be agree more with you. And how long have you been in the fraud prevention industry?
So this is an interesting question because I look at your previous guests, and if ever there's a time where you get imposter syndrome, that's right now for me on this podcast because I don't fit into that same mix of these highly experienced fraud fighters. What I line up with them on is passion, but I've been in this business now for 9 months. So I've been in fraud fighting only 9 months. But what I think that gives me is a little element of a superpower because I come in with no presuppositions. I come in with no bad habits. And I come in with kind of hands open to learn and understand where we are today in fighting fraud and how I can help. Now, there's kind of a juggling act that you have there because people who work with me expect a level of expertise and experience. I have that from the company perspective, from the technology and all the people within our risk teams and so forth. So I have that in spades, like leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of other providers. But what people buy from me is, again, trust. You need to work with somebody who's ethical, honest, and trustworthy that is going to help you navigate this buying process and make sure that you're looked after. And that I can do. That I've been doing for professionally for the last close to 18 years.
It's actually amazing that you have, like, as you say, just 9 months experience because you joined an amazing time when it's everyone's speaking about AI. What do you think about the industry? I mean, after like 9 months, what's your feeling about like industry in general?
I think it's becoming industry in general. I mean, you say AI. AI is it's everywhere in every industry, but I think it's going to power fraud and fraud attacks at a level that we've never seen before this year. I mean, just because you have access to these open models that are out there, these open weight models, plus the closed models that can't be jailbroken. And for people listening, I'm doing air quotes because I mean you can pretty easily manipulate a lot of these models. But yeah, so AI in my short space of time in this industry, I've seen that become extremely relevant, both on the defense side and on the attack side. And then I've also seen the community growing and becoming more vocal. So there's podcasts like you, there's fraudologies and fraud boxes and all of these things out there, and online profiles of people doing things like House of Fraud and About Fraud and all of this big community that kind of is growing, and there's this groundswell of the good guys that are trying to fight the bad guys. And so as much as I see fraud becoming a massive issue, more so than it ever has been, partly because of AI, I see the same thing happening within the community. The community's growing, the community's being more vocal, and I think that's awesome.
I agree with you. Actually, when I was thinking about like 10 years ago, it was probably a couple of communities, not much of them, and the people try to find something. They just like Google stuff, and it's I had recording this week recently, and we spoke with one of my guests related to fraud prevention solutions like 10, 15 years ago. It was like maybe two of them which still exist. It wasn't like an issue. Maybe people not really care much about it, and if we're looking on the numbers perspective, they are not that much losses rather than we see right now.
Yeah.
In the era of internet and mobile and e-commerce. When you're looking like on the future steps of the industry, do you see I understand it's going like we're growing community as well, but something else might be changing. You see the vector where it's going.
I see it from a technology or solutions point of view. I mean, I think a big kind of buzz right now is orchestration and platforms that are bringing together a number of the different solution providers and vendors to orchestrate that into a seamless single platform and single experience for the platform that has these tools and be able to unplug and plug in whatever they need. So the typical kind of benefits of an orchestration platform. So I see that becoming more relevant over time as people want to be able to get to market quickly with new solutions and new protections as they experience fraud and as they maybe launch new product types into new markets and experience a risk that they're not used to or they're not ready for. The ability to do that, I think, is going to become quite important. So vendor selection, I think, is going to be a key criteria. But in the background, there's going to be this orchestration issue that I'm seeing out there as a positive.
Yeah, definitely a lot of the companies nowadays who just speaking about. I believe the orchestration become is the second popular word the last
Yeah,
year on the line with AI.
yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's everywhere, and it makes a lot of sense. I think, I mentioned their vendor selection as being a key element too, because it really depends who you're going to work with and whether they truly do end-to-end protection and whether they take a root cause approach to solving for malicious activity and fraud. So when vendors work with us, we don't see as much of a need to go into that orchestration platform because a lot of things are solved upfront, like at the root cause, because we take really a first principles approach to solving the problem. But yeah, I think for people that are putting together different technologies and different vendors, it's going to be a talking point continuing into 2024.
And speaking about like fraud prevention that you joined, what was your motivation? Why you decide after a decent experience in IT and e-commerce technologies, you decide to know it's a time to go into the fraud prevention? What was your
So
main
I
drive?
kind of, and I think it's very similar to everybody else in fraud. You kind of stumble into it. You find your way into it, and when you're in it, you realize you love it. And so for me, I love selling technology. I love to understand a value proposition and then be able to articulate it in a storytelling mode that makes it valuable to the listener or to whoever I'm having the discussion with, and match a need that client has with a solution that is provided through technology. So I was looking to get into another technology business. I was in one and I was looking to move into another sales role. So I was looking for good technology. So when I joined Shield, that's what I was looking for. And I wasn't specifically looking to prevent fraud at that point. I was looking for a slick piece of tech. I was looking for a really good sales process and a market opportunity. So where that product has a massive addressable market and people need what they sell. So that's what attracted me in the first place. But what really makes me stay and makes me want to build this as a career is the alignment of the company goals and fraud prevention holistically with my own values. So I've always had key values that I try to stick to. Now, nobody's perfect. I definitely don't get this right all the time, but I really want to be a person known for honesty, integrity, and trustworthiness. And so that is fraud prevention. That's what like drives all of us, I think, to be those kind of people and create that within our work. So that lines up with Shield's mission, which is eliminating unfairness to enable trust for the world. Like it's a bold mission, but that, and normally like company missions are in the air, like kind of hot air. This speaks directly to my core values as a human being, because that's what I want to do in the world. That's how I want to interact with people in the world. So now I'm matching this technology sale that I want to do, but with core values. And so to me, when those two things meet, it's just a steam train ahead. Like I don't see that deviating or changing anytime soon.
I see how you're passionate about the company where you're working right now, and that mission that suits you and the vision that company have is that's one of the important things. And for advices for people for looking starting their career, what key parameters you would recommend to check first when you consider to join any companies?
Any company, I mean, It takes a long time. I've had a lot of different roles in different companies. It's always been sales. So I've always been perfecting my craft and selling technology. And so that's great and moving through the ranks and getting to senior positions. But I think the soonest you can define your own values. So like what are your core values? And really not sit down and just get some values on paper, but really what drives you as a person. Like what is going to motivate you besides money, besides achievement, besides notoriety or positions or anything like that. Figure out what your core values are because that is going to be the fuel that's going to drive you through the hard times. When you're up late at night preparing a presentation or you're flying at 3 in the morning, you're going to get to somewhere and then you're going to have to commute another 11 hours before you have your first meeting. Like you're going to need a fuel that is a lot more powerful than money or power or any of these things. So if you can figure out what your core values are truly to you and align that with the mission of the business that you're trying to do or the function of the role that you're trying to apply for, I think that is a really good step of going in the right direction because then you have a more meaningful and more purposeful driving force that'll show in everything you do when you have that kind of alignment.
Do you believe it is actually kind of the pressure from generation? What I mean here, so you probably know this Jeff Weiner, who is former CEO of LinkedIn. I watch a lot of his videos because I really like how he interpretate like how companies set up the strategy, etc., etc. What he mentioned that, for example, millennials. I'm from
Yeah.
90s, and he said for millennials, it's very important that the company, what's company doing, it is something matter for the world,
Yeah.
entire world. For example, if the company resolves the issue with ecology, it's something matter for the whole planet, and that's mean I'm happy to work in this company.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you look on the generation like Z, like I don't know, 20s right now, something like that, for them is flexibility is the key drive, and companies using this two generation things to trick some people.
Yeah.
Do we need to follow these tricks, or we need to build our own understanding what's really matter for
I
us?
think I think it's such an important question because it's like, do you define yourself and put yourself in that bucket and say, for me, because of my age, I'm driven by purpose-led missions. For me, because of my age, I'm younger, I am driven by flexibility or whatever it is. Like, I think that is broadly true for people and just as a general statistic. But statistics aren't individuals and aren't individual people with their subjective natures. So I would say it's important to understand that. But that's why I say when I say your real meaning and real purpose that drives you, this is when flexibility isn't enough. So great, I've got awesome flexibility. I'm totally remote. All I have to do is achieve an outcome. I don't have to put in a certain amount of hours, whatever have you. You're going to get to a demotivated point. You're going to deal with times in your life where you're depressive, where you have traumas in life, or whatever it may be. How are you going to navigate that storm when flexibility is your driving force? And purpose, like solving climate change, that's a great purpose to be a part of. But is it going to matter enough to you in your personal capacity when all the cards are on the table, you're facing fire on all sides, and you've got to drive through whatever the problem is? Probably not, because like it's a high level purpose. I'm talking about who you are as a person. What are your real values? Because that's going to carry you going forward. And I think that's good advice for somebody who's trying to align what they do with how they earn income with their values.
Thank you for this advice and describe exactly what you mean here, because I just like come up with this example only because I thought, okay, some people who listen, they might think, oh, okay, I need to look in on particular things, and they start to, when you don't know what to looking for, you start to Google or ask around, and when you ask around, you realize some of people like reply in the same area. So that's very important that you need to consider yourself. It might be it might not happen in the first company, second or third. It might happen after like 5, 7 rows. But in general, you end up in the moment to say, okay, so this is three things I am just like key for me. If they are not here, I'm not ready, even if they offer me something unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, for listeners of your podcast, if somebody is asking those questions of themselves now and they're listening to this, they have a good indication of where they want to be. They want to be in fraud fighting for some reason. I mean, this is a niche part of the world. Like, not everybody is listening to fraud podcasts and is passionate about stopping fraud. So if you are and you're listening, you already have a lot of that alignment. So now you just kind of have to fit like which is the right kind of company, what is their market approach, and that type of thing, and what do you want to do in your career, and where is the trajectory of those careers going, and does that align with your values?
What kind of advice you can give to people who just like right now is sitting and actually considering to join the fraud prevention? Because you recently joined, and even if you have some passion for a long time, but you just actually started working with the fraud not long enough for like to say, oh, it was long time ago. But I mean here, if I'm sitting right now and think, okay, so what skills are necessary to me or help me to really smooth to join to this industry? What skills
I would,
or
I
beliefs?
would say, other than the passion, it's going to be curiosity, and an unquenchable curiosity on all sides. Because if you're going to be fighting fraud cases, you're going to basically be playing detective. You're trying to figure stuff out. You're trying to figure out motivations, and I think that makes it super exciting because you're not just stopping a bad guy. You're playing detective, and you're trying to figure out what motivates them so that you can put things in place that stop that intent before it even becomes an action. Then, when there's an action, how do we deal with that action? And I think that's such a cool way to approach work, and have a fun way of doing work, is knowing that kind of thing is involved in fraud fighting. So if you have an element of passion, you want to make platforms more trustworthy, you want to catch bad guys, you want to be a detective and solve problems, and you're intensely curious to keep learning and to keep finding ways to beat fraudsters because they're going to keep trying to find ways to beat you, then it's for you. Like, you're going to have those thirsts quenched in this industry, if you pursue a role in fraud fighting.
Amazing advice. As one of guests mentioned, that if you like puzzles, it's something for you because you just
Exactly.
need to find the right pieces for the right places.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. Have you ever been victim of fraud?
Look, I'm South African, so it's kind of a rite of passage. It's just part of being a South African. I haven't been a victim of much digital fraud. We have like a really robust digital banking sector and financial sector, and I think it's because of the kind of corrupt state of and the desperation that a lot of people have, given the economics of our country. I've had credit card details compromised once. I didn't end up losing anything. I got my money back, so nothing notable. But I have been victim of in-person scams because we have a lot of poverty. You have a lot of people who will pretend to be desperate and will give you some sort of a story. They need a lift somewhere. You give them a lift. They continue the story. It builds up. They kind of pull on your heartstrings, and you end up giving them some money, and then you see them the next day in another area doing the same thing, similar story to somebody else, and it's kind of, that's the business they're in. So I've fallen victim to that twice, but I'm happy to fall victim to that in the sense that my intent is pure. I'm trying to help that person, whether they have a malicious intent behind why they're doing it. Kind of that's their problem.
It's kind of like the things that you try to be. It's probably people hate me when I say things. I'm not believing in some organization that's request donations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I believe in some of them, probably part which related to animals because the animals can't help
Yeah.
themselves. Unfortunately, we're really bad guys, people, and But when people try to sell me to say, "Oh, you need to donate there, you need to donate everywhere,"
Yeah.
so and when you look on the mission of all these companies, my main concern that I don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
I mean, I can donate, okay, and I don't know what happens in there because it's so many stories when company collect donation and people at the end getting like only half of this in the best scenario. So
Exactly.
yeah,
I mean, nonprofits are notorious vehicles for kind of just abusing the financial structure of the nonprofit for selfish gain. So, I mean, there'll be a load of fin crime people listening to this that's their daily experience, trying to shut down bad actors in the not for profit space. I think personally that not for profits should be their mandates, their salary structure of individuals, and their income statement should be on the blockchain. Like, should be completely open and transparent ledgers that you can see exactly what's going on, and anyone can interact with that. That would be a way of kind of solving that problem. But yeah, I mean, it's sad that people do that, but that's the world we live in.
yeah, unfortunately. So sometimes it's only one word I can say. It's unfortunately. In your current company,
Mhm.
when you start like probably onboarding, it's my expectations might happen to onboarding, and people start to share with you some examples of the what kind of fraud they prevented.
Yeah.
Do you have any memorable case that a company shared to you? It's not necessary to say any companies or numbers, but kind of like the case that's like tried like to really impress you, and you just like really, it's like fraudsters can do this one. Do you have any
There are so
example like that?
there are so many. It never fails to amaze me how creative fraudsters can be to abuse systems and figure out ways. Like, to me, it takes so much more effort to be that professional at doing fraud than it would be to just do a job and earn an honest income. But some things that I've seen is where, or types of use cases that I've seen is things like artificial price surging in the ride-hailing industry. I don't know if you've seen that type of thing happening, but drivers will spin up loads of fake passenger accounts. They'll request rides in a particular area, playing on the supply and demand algorithm of the platform. They'll drive prices up in the read in that area wherever they are. And maybe it's a couple of drivers that get together to do this. They each have multiples of user accounts that they're using to do this artificial price kind of surging. They then accept legitimate rides, but at a higher price. They get their commission percentages paying out at a higher rate. The user gets a bad experience because they're paying a higher than normal rate. The platform sees a whole lot of data that is false and incorrect, and they're making decisions based on, well, this is the busy area, we need to deploy more drivers there, we need to focus on marketing there, whatever it may be. And it's all coming from a few malicious drivers looking to game the system, essentially. So that's something that I thought was pretty interesting. And there are so many of those kinds of things, especially across delivery, ride hailing, even social media. There's so many.
I like your examples with riders because I used to work in a company which is like the taxi aggregator,
Yeah.
and what you describe, I saw so many of those cases like that when
Yeah.
someone creating the user profile and I remember one was a case that's kind of amazed me that person not even was so lazy even to drive,
Mm-hmm.
just like created GPS plug, just like creating visualization that you're moving
Yeah.
and then moving across the city and then getting money for the fake drivers. It was so amazing because the driver was so lazy to going somewhere and he sitting probably 1 kilometer from the office where the company located.
It's crazy.
And
I
yeah,
mean,
and when this,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was about to say, like, that's something that on our side, at least, we call those kind of ghost rides, where the driver and the passenger are the same person. And maybe they're not doing it at massive scale, but maybe the driver has like a bonus for the day if he does 10 rides for the day or whatever it is. So then he registers for the ride himself. It's both are his accounts, but one's a fake profile. His driver account's legitimate, but his passenger account is fake. So he requests the ride, accepts the ride. The money's going between his account, so he doesn't lose out. And then he does 10 of those in the day and gets a bonus for doing the ride. But he hasn't even left his apartment. He's sitting on the couch, busy faking GPS spoofing his location, his route, the works. It's crazy. Like, to me, that's more effort. I'd rather just get out there and drive the vehicle and get the wage, man.
Yeah, the people are crazy, and it was a presentation one of the MRCs in Athens, and Janus from Bolt presented how they working with social media. It was like so impressed me that people still using Telegram to selling rights and getting so much profit.
Yeah, I mean,
So it's
Telegram it's insane how fraudsters, it's like, at least from the way I see it and use Telegram, it's basically just fraud communities, like how to buy an account for this platform, how to abuse this promo that is running on this other platform. Like, it's insane how brazen. That's also part of what I've seen so far in my journey, is how brazen they are. People will even GPS map on Google Maps a fraud community where you can meet up and figure out ways together to defraud platform X, whatever it may be. So it's nuts. Like, I just think it's so crazy.
so great, so great, so many stories, and yeah, I believe I need to start asking a lot about these cases from a future guest, because this is where exactly
Yeah,
you understand why you're sitting in the front area, because out of these stories.
exactly.
I have small one. I believe it's small one. It's a bit with touch about like career perspective, because you're growing to high positions. I'm in general quite impressed how you're growing across all different companies. Can you give it advice for people who like try to grow but something not working for them?
I think, well, it really depends on what you're trying to achieve within in that business. But good businesses and good leaders foster growth. So if you are a growth mindset type of person, so you're always looking to learn, you're looking to improve, you're innovative, and you are not having to be told what to do every 5 seconds. Like, this is a list of your tasks, complete them, and then you complete them, and then you wait for the next task. But if you are proactive and you do things over and above, you will grow in your role. Good leaders will notice your potential and they will help you grow through. People like to help other people grow. There are people that will try and stop you and block you and that type of thing. That's fine. You'll identify those people really quickly. But most people are decent and they want to help you grow and they want to be a part of your growth. So make sure, firstly, you're that type of person. You're looking to grow in your career. There are a number of ways you can grow as an individual contributor or as taking sort of more of a management track. If you enjoy working with people and you are empathetic and you are able to put yourself in their shoes and you want to be a servant-based kind of leader, then maybe look at management and look at that. As the way I look at managing people is, it's a force multiplier for me. I can only do so much with my time. I only have so many hours in the day. If I'm managing 5 people, I have a 5x return on my time. And so that to me is a good way to go. But managing people is a whole lot of individual human beings with their emotions, their life issues, their whatever it may be. And so you need to be willing to deal with that, work with that, and actually enjoy.
Thank you for all these advices, and once again, greatly describing everything. I don't know how to, it's hard to impress myself actually to say how you good to describe all of these things. I need to learn a lot of these things. Hey, first of all, for people who right now watching this episode, they might figure out that we're probably sitting in the different causes. It's not being we changed during the interview. It's because of technology is so great, but for some reasons this technology wasn't that great in the first record, and we need to merge two different records. And Hilton, thank you so much for finding time for record one of the part of our podcast.
Yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure. It's round 2, I think, back by popular demand. Let's
Yeah,
see. Let's see if we can get it right.
yeah, and Actually, we stopped it in the last one. I have the last questions to you, which I believe is very important in your role, and I believe it's. Let me phrase this the question like that. So right now we have so many fraud solutions in the market. It's a lot of them. It's red oceans, and a lot new companies arrive in the market. And for you, for person who like salesman, it is pretty hard to reach out to any companies because I believe all of them back to you with this say we have the long-term relationships with another provider, we don't have a budget, and we don't have resources as well. That's created like a lot of the problem to motivate people when start to speak with you about possible to review new solution, not necessarily that you immediately need to sign in something, even to speak.
Yeah.
How you survive in this instance nowadays?
I think you have to have a very thick skin, firstly, to be a salesperson, especially a salesperson selling technology remotely. It's a very difficult task because by default, most people you're reaching out to don't want to be approached by a salesperson. They want to reach out when they have a need. So it's about trying to find that timing to make sure your timing is correct. Life is about correct timing. And so when you're reaching out to the right person at the right time with the right solution, things go very smoothly. But I can't rely only on timing. I have to be proactive and I have to reach out constantly. So a lot of listeners to this podcast might see me in their inbox, might see me in their DMs in LinkedIn, might even get a physical delivery from me, whatever it may be, or a phone call or whatever it is. I think what I would like to say to those people that are on the receiving side is that at least if you're a honest and disciplined salesperson that has integrity, you'll be doing sufficient research on each of your prospective customers, if you can put them that way, and you'll be reaching out with a message that is as tailored as possible to that particular person. And there's a reason why that vendor is reaching out to you. They believe they have a solution that can help you with a problem they are pretty sure you're struggling with. And so they need a few minutes of your time. And that's always the common ask. Hey, just give me 10 minutes of your time or 15 minutes of your time for a quick call. I guess the point of that is really to get somebody on the line to say, hey, this is what we're doing. We know that in your industry, with clients that we've served before, they experience this issue. I think you probably have that too, based on maybe these few things from the research that I conducted. And then explaining it over a call or in a meeting online, you get to unpack where that value is and how they could assess your technology or assess the tool. So I understand they get barraged by a million messages a day and you can't possibly respond to all of them. And when the timing is right, you will reach out to the right people. But I think if you can, if the message resonates, if the person is being respectful and doing enough work, putting in their time first before they reach out, and it's not just some automated message that comes to you, entertain it as much as you can, but not just for the sake of the person reaching out, for the sake of your business. Because vendors have great insights into what's happening in the fraud world. Their business is entirely comprised of trying to solve fraud problems in their specific niche, whatever it is they serve. So you can gain a lot of insights from the vendor themselves and from the salespeople of those vendors. And going along the assessment journey of new technology can kind of become just a part of good fraud practice of staying in a kind of on top of the latest technology and solutions out in the market. And a lot of these solutions providers will offer trial periods or POC periods where you can kind of test the tool. You can use that time as a kind of gut check on your existing fraud stack and your existing systems that are in place. Like, how do we currently measure up? What is the latest technology? What are they finding out in the market? And so instead of it being a should I entertain a sales call, it's let me investigate more to stay on top of technology, to stay on top of the latest fraud trends, and to kind of A B test my current system. I think that's a better approach. And if people take that approach a little bit more often, maybe there'll be a few more happy salespeople on the other side of those messages.
Yeah, I think for this because I believe don't get me wrong, it's usually two kind of salespeople in the markets. First one, which they're sending a message, and even when you reply to them, they never come back to you. And after like a couple of weeks, they just like, oh yeah, if you still figure out, yeah, we still have a call. I believe this happens because they're using some automatic source,
Yeah,
some technology that send over the messages.
yeah. Yeah,
That's
typically that's automated, and that's what I mean by showing you the necessary level of respect and integrity in their outreach. Like I'm giving you my time first in doing the research and really making sure that when I reach out to you, it's meaningful. That's the least I can do as somebody reaching out cold to a prospective client.
Yeah, and of course we have another second example. But for people who listen to this right now, it's a quite interesting things I learned from someone who is right now working as an architect at one of the fund companies. He added, the emoji of the book before the name. And when this happens automatically, they most of this time say "dear," like image of the book, and after this providing the message. So it's the things how you can filter out a bit.
Yeah,
I know this actually still working. I just spoke with this guy like a couple of weeks ago. He told me that it's very work well when someone from HR try to hire you and you getting this message, "Hi, book, how are you today?"
yeah. I
But yeah,
mean, those are like fundamental things that you've got to get right. You can't be doing that kind of thing. That's why it has to be meaningful. It has to be tailored. It has to be well thought out. And so, if you get something that you can see effort has gone into it, or that they're actually paying a bit of attention to what you do, I think it can be really valuable to entertain that 15-minute call, or that 30-minute call, or that hour-long demo. Um, Understanding that the right salesperson is going to understand that you giving up your time is your most valuable asset that you have, and they will respect that, and they will make sure that they give you value in that time. So it's a good exchange of value, hopefully. But again, you'd have to probably sift through a lot of really bad options in those outreaches too. So I don't hold it against anybody that finds it overwhelming, the amount of outreach that they receive.
that's great. Yeah, and I believe this was the last question. And once again, thank you for the round two. This one is a short one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say my favorite word, which is actually cut. But this time I'm not ended on this one. I want to say once again, thank you, Hilton. It was a great pleasure for two rounds. And maybe in the future we'll have another episode and see how it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Ivan. I appreciate your time.